Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here, or hang on a second, I can't start with the bin behind me. Bloody hell. You see, I was cleaning the study yesterday, so I just whacked that one up there because I was vacuuming. Anyway, you don't need to know that. Okay, book review time. First of all, let me get and start an introduction. My name is Helen Blunden, or at Activate Learn on Twitter. You can see here with my COVID hair, which I am effectively covering up with some nice makeup and some colourful nails, just so your eyes go on the nails and not the hair. Not really. I've been experimenting with makeup looks, and Dominic Saxey, who is someone I follow, had this new makeup look and I was just trialing it out. But anyway, enough about that. Let's go into the important stuff, which is the books. That book I want to review this time round. Okay, first of all, before I go into the book, see all those books behind me? They are all my non-fiction business, marketing, entrepreneur, philosophy books. Anything that is basically not fiction is here. Now, many of these books I have used, I have referred to over the years. Many I have read, but there are some there that I have not read, and I thought to myself, here's the time now to start reading them. And so I picked one out, and I don't know why I picked this one out. I just went, that'll do. And it was Leading with Soul, An Uncommon Journey of the Spirit by Lee Bolman and Terrence E. Deal. Now, this one, I'm trying to recall where I got this book. It's a nice book, I must admit. I like the hardcover books, and it's really rough. It's kind of like, it's a nice book to have on your bookshelf. But when I'm trying to recall when I got this, and I think it was when I was in the corporate world back in the late 90s. And one of the corporations I was working with, a very well-known financial service, big bank, one of the big four banks of Australia, was going through a massive transformation program. They had invited a big consulting firm, McKinsey's, to come through and do a massive transformation, cultural transformation, spiritual awareness thing. I think they called it Breakout. Anyway, I think you can put two and two together and guess which bank it was. Anyway, part of that, the bank also offered a great opportunity for employees. They gave us some money to be able to spend towards books, and in fact had a partnership with a major bookseller at the time, and we had our own kind of web page that we could go in and choose our books, and it was fantastic. It was a great professional development initiative that I was part of the team that did that. But anyway, part of that, I decided to get Leading with Soul, An Uncommon Journey of the Spirit. Now, I don't know why I got this. I have no reason, and I have not read it since the late 90s. And in fact, this book was published in 1995. And I must admit, it's a bit different to the other books I usually read. Okay, let me read this and you can decide where I'm going with this. With the appearance of Leading with Soul in 1995, Terry Dill and Lee Bolman became pioneers in the movement to reconnect work and spirit. Since then, interest in the spiritual dimensions of leadership and work has exploded. This is 1995. In book clubs and boardrooms, talk shows and seminar rooms, more and more people are coming together in search for depth and meaning in their work and lives. Okay, at the heart of this groundbreaking book in 1995, that's not in there, is a contemporary parable which tells the story of Steve. Okay, hang on, I can talk about this. So anyway, this is a story of Steve. He's a corporate high flyer who's done everything in his life, and he feels a bit, he's reached a point in his corporate career where everything is meaningless for him. He wants to find a lot more meaning in what he does. He doesn't find joy out of it. And he wants to find out what is the true and real reason of his life. Where is the meaning in his work? He was finding it very vacuous, very empty. And so he was told by someone to go and meet Maria. Now, Maria is his guide. Um, Initially, in the beginning of the book, he doesn't take to her. He finds her a bit airy-fairy, and she gives him all these tasks to do. You know, go get lost in the forest, go walk in the forest, go get lost. And he just doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. Um, and so over time, though, with a lot of conversations and his trips over to go and see Maria, his spiritual guide, he starts to unveil, I guess, some aspects of what is truly important in his life. And what we get here is a mix of fiction. So it's a story, a parable, and then in between there are what's known as interludes, where they talk about the actual gifts. Now, what are the 4 gifts that they focus on that people at work should be, I guess, espousing and following? And the gifts are, number 1, the gift of love. Everything that we do should come from a place of love, where we're dropping our masks, not the COVID masks, but the masks of ourselves, being authentic people, showing our vulnerability, being authentic with everything and everyone that we work with, and showing ourselves. That is the gift of love. So that's the first thing. The second one is the gift of significance, which I found really interesting. The significance is, where are the rituals, celebrating the rituals in our work life? Things like celebrating the project's completion, celebrating people's birthdays, celebrating events together. There's a whole heap of rituals. And this really, as I was reading it, I was reminded of the stuff that we were going through in isolation with COVID now, that a lot of people are working from home and they're finding that the rituals, the human connections that they used to have in person at work is just not happening anymore, or it's in a different format. And there was a quote here that he said that without these rituals, life becomes a series of endless Wednesdays. And you have to remind yourself, like I've been watching all the tweets of people working from home saying, you know, what day is it? What day is it? So the second gift he talks about is the gift of significance, and how we could incorporate some of these rituals in the work that we do to make it significant in our work lives. Now, the third one is the gift of power, and that is not the power of leaders, but it is giving or empowering people to make their own decisions, to be able to give them an opportunity to influence their own work, to be able to lead their own work. So it's the gift of, not empower, he calls it gift of power, giving power. It's really empowering, the gift of empowering others. So leaders should look at ways of empowering others to be able to have a say in their work, make their work, you know, and do everything that allows them to get onto this fourth gift, which is a gift of authorship, which is all about trusting people to solve their own problems, enabling them to be the creators of their own work, coming up with their own work, making the decisions around their work and their life. And so these 4 gifts, the gift of love, the gift of significance, the gift of power, and the gift of authorship, are what leaders should be handing over or gifting or giving to employees in their companies. Now, this book, having read it, this was written in 1995. And you've got to admit, back in 1995, a lot of us were still trying to be like...
that greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
So we were all trying to be the Gordon Geckos, right? I know I was. I failed abysmally, though, because I realised I just can't function in that freaking way in a corporate world. Not me. Anyway, but, you know, I think if I read this book back in 1995, it would have blown my mind, okay? Number one, I would have thought, geez, you're courageous and really brave writing about love in the corporate scene. Bloody hell. But as I was reading this nowadays, however many years later, I failed maths, 2020, 19, anyway, it doesn't matter. Many years later, 25 years later, this book kind of missed the mark for me. And I think the reason is that I've been through it already. That's all it is. Back in 1995, I hadn't gone through that journey. But over time, in the 2000s, all the shit I was going through in the corporate world, the ups and downs of being a freelancer, the angst and worry of not being able to move up in the corporate world because of whatever reason, and yet in other parts of my life or in my Navy Reserve career, I was able to go quite high up in the organisation, whereas in the corporate world it just didn't gel. So I had things that I had gone through and tried to think, what the hell is going on here? And I came to terms with it. So reading this book now was a bit late for me. The other thing I noticed about this book was it was kind of like another book. Let me show you which book. This one. Yes, I've got this book. Don't hold it against me. Look, I didn't mind this book when I first read it back in 1996. I was in, where was I? I was in Amsterdam, and I read this cover to cover. No, that was actually, no, 1994. It was 1994, and I read this cover to cover, and I was in awe of this book. But anyway, that was 1994. Completely different, but similar. Okay, this is a Celestine. This is a Celestine Prophecy for leaders. Okay. What was I doing in 1994, 1996? Obviously, I was hell-bent on not going into my own spiritual journey. What I was doing, I was kind of reading these type of books, which is the reason why. I was getting into stuff like this, the Clue Train Manifesto, Fast Company, New Rules of the New Economy. This is the stuff I was getting into. I wasn't getting into the spiritual stuff. Although now in 2020, I don't know about you, but have you seen the amount of spiritual stuff for leaders and corporates and organizations now? Thanks to people like Lulu and a whole heap of other writers who are looking at the reinvention of the organization, I think this stuff now is more important. But I think in some way this book is slightly dated. Not too much, simply because there's also references and quotes of Jesus Christ. And when I read quotes like that, okay, I know the parables of Jesus Christ are pretty much in line with the, I guess, the spirituality, which is fine, whether it's Buddhism or whether it's, there was another one called here, the Bhagava, yeah, anyway, that was my reaction. But I understood the intent of this book. I understood the intent. Anyway, Leading with Soul, An Uncommon Journey of Spirit by Bolman and Terrence. I found slightly dated since 1995, but still relevant. Anyway, have you read this book? What did you think about it? I would be interested to know what you think. Okay then, bye for now.